I did meet him. He's amazing.
No, I got two of them too.
Oh, really?
There are two of them.
Oh, I see.
It's a stack of two.
I'll take it off.
Everybody needs to vote.
So you're going to pull that from consent because that's on the sheriff's civil service minutes.
How many do we have?
7 total. That's the only one on the agenda part. The rest are on the briefing. So there's...
We ready? No.
Thank you.
Clerk will call the roll.
Sam Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
I'm really excited today. We've got a great court ahead of us. We've got some folks that have done some great things and are doing great things here with us today. We're going to begin with our invocation by Minister Spencer Ross from the Northwest Church of Christ. And then after the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges. Welcome.
Would you join me in prayer? Our wise and loving Father, we're thankful to be gathered here today. Thank you for the many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our positions and roles, for sustenance and friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work, for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you for the freedom to embrace you as well as the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us even so from your boundless and gracious nature. In your scriptures, Father, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, we pray for this court, for the various levels of city officials, and then in particular this assembled council. I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern in these times, in these different issues. We ask to give them a sense of welfare and true needs for our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there's honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives, and a joy in their task. I pray for the agenda that is set before them today. Please give them assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work around our beloved country. It's in the name of Jesus we offer this prayer. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Minister, for... He go.
Okay then.
Mr. Manius, would you like to make your few, several, or many?
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have several items on the agenda that we'd like to point out to you this morning. Under the administrator section, on items A1, 2, and 3, there are revised communications in the red folder this morning. A lot of this is just is what we normally do with some of our reports. We try to bring them as up to date as possible. So you have that. Also, members of the court, under human resources, item 9F8. This is a receive and file from the Sheriff's Department Civil Service meeting. We're going to ask that you remove that from the consent item because we have one audience participation form as it relates to that particular issue. Also, members of the court, under purchasing, item 9I7. This is RFP number 2021-079. We're going to ask that we hold that particular item and for next week, or actually for 2 weeks from now.
That's number 7?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it's RFP 2021-079.
Got it.
Also, members of the court, as it relates to the agenda in our meetings, we'd like to once again remind the court and remind our departments that we're not holding a commissioner's court next week, but that'll be something that our next meeting, I believe, will be on the 26th. Also today at 2 p.m. in the Family Law Center, we have the IT Steering Committee. And then, Your Honor and members of the court, as we get to the administrator's section, we're going to take several things out of order. We're going to take several briefing items. One is the item B, which is the participation in the Haltom City Tax Increment Financing District Zone 2. We will then go to our section, the administrator section, and talk about the refunding aspect. Then we'll bring Mr. Tenasia up to do the weekly update, health update, and then we'll move back to the briefing agenda at its normal pace to cover the election, or the electric vehicle charging and the election issues at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That was several.
It was several, and I'm going to probably even more mix it up when we get to proclamations. But in the meantime, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of April the 5th.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
And Commissioner Brooks and Commissioner Fickus? Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, before we go into presentations, could I ask if I could just take a moment and ask Courtney Davis, who is head of our AgriLife division, she would like to come up and make an announcement.
Hi, Courtney.
Good
How are you?
Good morning.
How's everyone? I promise I won't take long. I just wanted to take a minute and introduce to you guys our new 4-H and youth development agent here in Tarrant County, Miss Kate Marshall. Kate joined our team almost a month ago and has already hit the ground running. She comes to us from the great state of Nebraska, which Commissioner Brooks, you mentioned in court a couple weeks ago that our population is more in Tarrant County than the whole state of Nebraska, so she's got her work cut out for her. She started working with Nebraska 4-H several years ago, worked at the state level over some livestock programs and their state robotics program, did some other things with them. Before coming to Texas, she served as an AgriLife 4-H agent in Henderson County, so she was in Athens for about 4 years before she had to go back to Nebraska, but she came back to Texas as quick as she could. So most recently, she served as the county 4-H agent for 3 counties at the same time in Nebraska. So that's 3 county shows, 3 county programs.
Bless
So,
your heart.
I know, right? But already,
What were the 3 counties?
Lincoln, Logan, and McPherson.
My wife's folks were from Nebraska, and so we're familiar with that. Plus, we've got, as Commissioner Brooks has indicated before, we've got some great friends up there through NACO.
Awesome.
So,
Douglas County.
so welcome aboard.
Yeah. She's been here less than a month, already has the Hatching in a Classroom program going in 3 school districts. We've got about 2,000 youth across Tarrant County that are experiencing that program right now, hopefully hatching baby chickens. Next week we'll see.
No pressure.
But also has attended a county 4-H youth roundup and a district 4-H youth roundup and has a robotics competition event planned for this fall. So she's moving and grooving.
That's
Thank you
great.
very welcome, and
Kate.
thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allen is going to begin with her proclamation today because this is just very exciting for me from this standpoint.
Yes, thank you, Judge, and I appreciate working with your office on this to recognize. Distinguished is an understatement, and you all will understand why as I read this proclamation and also as you meet this young man, Mr. Orion Jean, who is a 6th grader at Mansfield ISD's Alma Martinez Intermediate School, and he was named Time Magazine's 2021 Kid of the Year, which is so cool. Yesterday, at opening day for the Rangers, he had the great opportunity to throw out the first pitch, which was really cool for him. I was like, wow, I've never done that, so it's on my list.
He didn't bounce it.
He didn't bounce it.
That's
No,
the thing.
yes.
He didn't bounce it.
Yes.
Threw it straight to Pudge.
So I'm going to read this into the record and then present it, and the judge also has something special as well. So whereas kindness is defined as the quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate, but we know it means so much more. And whereas Orion Jean is a 6th grade student at Alma Martinez Intermediate School in the Mansfield in the Mansfield Independent School District. And whereas inspired by what he saw on the news at the beginning of the pandemic, he started his Race to Kindness platform. And whereas Orion's goal was to collect and distribute 100,000 meals to food insecure families, toys to local children in hospitals, and books for kids who didn't have any at home. And whereas, in addition to reaching his goal, Orion has collected and helped deliver over 500,000 books for kids across our country. And whereas, in recognition of his charity work, Time Magazine named Orion 2021 Kid of the Year. And whereas Orion hopes his book, a kid's book about leadership, inspires others to make a difference in their communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby commend Orion Jean for being named Time Magazine's 2021 Kid of the Year, And further, in recognition of his service to his community, we proclaim April 12th, 2022 as Orion Jean Day in Tarrant County. In witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and cause the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 12th day of April 2022. With that, I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, and we're going to bring him up here.
Yes,
But
very
before
good.
we do, I want to just read a couple of things. I mean, this young man, it's amazing. You just wish you could have time to sit down and spend not minutes with him, but hours with him. In an interview he did with Angelina Jolie, which, as you said, is, yeah, we'd all wish we could interview with her. She asked, what is the kindness initiative? And he says, I started it was a race to kindness. The race to kindness is not just a series of events, but also a call to action. It's a way to get people involved in the community you know. And when you see something happening now, you can go out and do something about it. Another, kindness is a choice. You can't force anyone else to be kind. And then when talked about, Angelina Jolie had mentioned that she saw kindness more many times with refugees. And Orion's response was, it's so much easier to be kind when your focus is simply on trying to get by, not consumed by all of the other things around you.
Yeah.
Now, folks, when I was 11 years old, I wasn't thinking these things. This quite hadn't reached the top of my priority list at this time. So I can't tell you how proud I am that we have in Tarrant County the time. It's hard for me to say Kid of the Year because this young man is already past the kid stage. And as it was also evidenced in here and was reminded to him by Angelina Jolie, don't forget about enjoying your life because you are well above many adults of all ages at this time. So I want you to come on up here.
Yes.
We're not going to catch you down there.
And then joining him is his mother, Carrie, and his brother, Crown.
Come on up. You can come on inside here. You do whatever you want to get whatever pictures you want.
How about you get here?
Okay. Stand on out. There you go.
Now, did everybody get all the pictures they want? One more.
Sorry.
Okay. Now, I'm going to let you make any comments you want to make. You can make them standing up, or if you won't, you can sit down, whichever you prefer.
I think he should take a seat in the
Take a
judge's chair.
seat. And you can come back here and do your judging.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of dates coming up. I'd love for you to come back and be the judge. Especially with your kindness attitude.
You know, I think one of my biggest worries of today is that I wouldn't be able to reach the mic. I think we've gotten past that now, though. So I'm good. So, first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here today And I know most people didn't know that I was going to receive this, but for everyone in the community's incredible support over the past couple of years, helping to spread kindness and keep going even throughout the pandemic and all of the crazy things that have happened over the past couple of years, and everyone who in their own way joined me in the race to kindness is truly an inspiration, and this is the kind of community that we need and that we want to grow and spread to make sure that everyone feels loved and feels kind. A lot of people, when they see me in these kinds of settings, they don't usually say it, but I can tell they're thinking, shouldn't he be in school? The answer to that question is technically yes, but I think that they'll hopefully appreciate that I may not always be present in, physical form, but I'm always trying to make sure that I'm there in spirit and trying to hopefully inspire my peers and my classmates and everyone around me to be kind as well. And my parents have been making sure that I have been getting good grades, because that is definitely a priority as well. It's up there with kindness. And I am so honored, all jokes aside, to be able to be here today and accept this, because I never thought that 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, 2 months ago, that I would be able to be here and be on a platform to where I'm able to tell people about the message of kindness and the message of love. And I want to be able to continue doing that with whatever I do. And this is just, it's not the end goal. It's not the reward. It's not the motivator. The motivator is seeing everyone come together for a common cause and really make a difference. So I want to say thank you to my friends, to my family, to my community, to everybody here, and to all of the judges and the commissioners who awarded me with this proclamation. So I should probably stop rambling, because you guys have other...
Better than most of us.
Thank you. Because you guys have other very important business. But lastly, I just want to say that everyone can join in on the race to kindness, because anyone can be kind. Thank you.
I hope that one day he gets to sit in one of these chairs, because we definitely need somebody like you helping to run this county.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Well, and I would add that we have 2 representatives from Mansfield ISD, so I wanted to be sure to recognize you all. Thank you so much for being here and supporting the Jean family.
And folks, just so you make sure you know, there wasn't a note 1. There wasn't a note 1 up here. It was all from his heart. And if you ever had any doubt about the young folks that are coming up in our society, right there is what's going to be the savior of us all. So I cannot say enough good things about him.
I would just like to say to Orion, I can't see you. There you are. You will hear this many times over the course of your life. But the fact that you will hear it many times does not make it not be true. you, young man, are the fondest wish of your ancestors.
Yep.
And I know that your initiative is about kindness, but your life is about wisdom. May you continue to grow in wisdom each and every day. Congratulations.
The next recognition that we have on our agenda, and this is why I just said this is an absolutely fantastic day, because the next group that we're going to recognize are our Child Protective Service Board and workers. It's Child Abuse Prevention Month, and I'll read this into the record. Whereas children are our future and greatest resource, whereas every child deserves a nurturing family, safe environment to grow into healthy, productive members of the community. Whereas child abuse is one of our nation's most serious public health problems and threatens the safety of our community. And whereas in Tarrant County, 6,511 children were confirmed as victims of child abuse or neglect in 2021. And whereas finding solutions to prevent child abuse is a community responsibility and depends on the involvement of all citizens. And whereas effective child abuse prevention, investigation, and treatment programs succeed because of partnerships among public and private agencies, schools, religious organizations, medical services, and the business community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Tarrant County. Further, we urge all citizens be aware of the signs of child abuse and act to protect the children of Tarrant County. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 12th day of April 2022, and I'll move its approval.
Second.
Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, and we have a crowd here. And I want all of them, Julie, everybody come on forward that's here with us today. I know we've got Julie, Christopher, Chuck, Courtney, Stacy, Don, Benny, and many others. So if you're here because of the child, please stand at a minimum. If not, come on down. Come on. We'll all get in here and sit and take a picture. I'm gonna move it back even more. He'll, you know. Come on, get in here.
Everybody else get in the circle.
Y'all get in here.
Yes.
Hey, Julie, how are you?
Joe, do you want to pull that thing out of there?
After we get everybody in. Everybody, we're gonna scoot it forward. Y'all come on, come on.
Hello, Judge. How are you? Stand way in the back.
Who's excited? Come on, y'all, right in here, let's, before we go, make sure we got the right side of it. Okay, start flashing. One more. All right. Now we'll do.
Jim. Hey, good to see you too.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
I don't know whether I volunteered this for you or I was volunteered.
Right.
It happens.
What a gift to be here this morning. Obviously, we did not know who was going to be in front of us. And personally, I couldn't be more thrilled to have witnessed what I just did and to get a glimpse into his Orion story. As a Mansfield graduate, I can now see the bar is set for those of us who move forward, right?
I don't think it's just Mansfield. I'm just telling you.
Man, that was quite amazing. And as I listened to his work, for those of us in the child welfare field, we wish that for every kid that walks through our doors. And shouldn't that be the bar by which we are challenged in our work? Child abuse is the opposite of kind. And what Orion's challenging us to do as a community, as a people, man, wouldn't that put all of us out of business? And wouldn't we jump for joy to be out of business, guys? Wouldn't we? So it is an honor to stand in front of you to represent the child protection team from the juvenile services, from your DA's office, ACH, our community, our kids, CASA, the Women's Center, Parenting Center, and of course, Department of Family and Protective Services. You've got folks here from Child Protective Services, Child Protective Investigations, and of course, our Child Welfare Board. We're united together. We're united with you every year as we stand for our kids and we innovate and we think outside the box. And if we needed a boost to be challenged today, boy, did we get it. So thank you for that. As I was parking today, I was reminded of how many times I've had the honor to stand before you. And I know as we do this next year, it's going to look a little different. And I want to thank y'all for always standing by us. Whether it's our agency, the kids we serve, you have challenged us to do better. You have dreamed a safer Tarrant County, and you've made it possible. And so thank you for your belief in us. Thank you for your belief in our kids. We know the work is not done, but man, do we have a boost this morning to move forward and all adopt this race to kindness. So thank you for that, and thank you.
Well, and Julie, congratulations on your new facility.
Thank you.
We got the chance to do the ribbon cutting, and it's fantastic. And I think back over the 26 years how far I've seen your organization come. First working with Nancy, then having the opportunity now to work with you. The facility in Northeast, the facility now in Fort Worth.
One in Arlington?
Yeah, the one in Arlington. I think that's in the process of being, if not completely, certainly expanded. It's a shame that we have to, but as you've said, we've got folks in Tarrant County who are really focused on trying to end child abuse, and your organization is just absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Appreciate
y'all.
Commissioner Brooks, I think you have a couple of proclamations, resolution.
I do, Your Honor. Thank you. The first one is National Healthcare Decision Day. And before I read this into the record, I want to speak from my personal experience about how important it is to make end-of-life health care choices before your end of life. I spent several years serving on the board of directors of Community Hospice of North Texas. And as my parents my mother and my father and my brother transitioned from life to the hereafter, we were comforted by hospice care from the very organization on whose board of directors I serve. So I would admonish everyone, while you're still in good health, tell your loved ones of the decisions that you want made for you when you're no longer able to make them for yourself. That is critical. Now I'll read the resolution. Whereas National Healthcare Decisions Day is designed to raise public awareness of the need to plan for healthcare decisions, especially those related to end-of-life care and medical decision-making when patients are unable to speak for themselves, and to encourage the specific use of advance directives to communicate those important healthcare decisions. And whereas decisions concerning healthcare should be made by individuals in consultation with their families and their healthcare provider. And whereas many citizens do not make adequate preparation for healthcare decisions in times of crisis or at the end of life, even though such present preparation is readily accessible through the medical and legal communities. And whereas National Healthcare Decisions Day helps raise awareness of the need to provide clear and consistent information to the public about advance directives and encourages medical and legal professionals to volunteer their time and efforts to improve public knowledge and increase the number of citizens with advance directives. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim April 16th, 2022 as National Healthcare Decisions Day in Tarrant County, and encourage all citizens to work together with legal and medical communities to ensure that an individual's wishes for health care, particularly as it relates to end-of-life care, are prepared, protected, and followed. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 12th day of April, 2022. And Your Honor, I move approval for this proclamation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Present with us this morning to receive this proclamation are Shakita Johnson, Executive Director of United Way of Tarrant County Area Agency on Aging, Brian Lee, Karen Telshaw Johnson, Esquire, and Leah Wingard. Y'all join me at the podium, please.
you so much. I have been nominated. Voluntold, yes, sir, and very happy to do so.
Morning.
I can't tell you how much we appreciate being here today. We believe that finding out someone's healthcare wishes is one of the kindest things that we can do. And our whole goal is to encourage others to take the time in preparation to care and prepare for their loved ones that will be around them when we understand mortality is 100%, as Karen Telshaw Johnson always says, mortality 100%. We all need to care and prepare. So our rallying cry to encourage others to pick their healthcare agent, we call it Choose Your Champion, and we look forward to helping all of Tarrant County choose their champion. Thank you so much for helping us get the word out today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, April is County Government Month. It makes me sad that so many of our citizens don't have a clue as to what county government does. Typically, they only encounter county government and its services when they go to pay taxes, when they're hauled into court for some civil or criminal action, or when they need health care and cannot afford to pay for it. National County Government Month is a program of the National Association of Counties to help us all recognize what counties do. I'm a former president of the National Association of Counties, and I followed Judge Whitley several years later as president of the National Association of Counties. We are fortunate in Tarrant County to have two national leaders serving on our local commissioners court. This proclamation reads, whereas the nation's 3,069 counties, parishes, and boroughs serve more than 315 million Americans by providing essential services to create healthy, safe, and vibrant communities. And whereas counties provide public health services, administer justice, keep communities safe, foster economic opportunities, and much more. And whereas Tarrant County and all counties take pride in their responsibility to protect and enhance the health, welfare, and safety of its residents in efficient and cost-effective ways. And whereas, under the leadership of the National Association of Counties President Larry Johnson, who is from DeKalb County, Georgia, NACO is demonstrating how counties thrive, the name of his presidential initiative, especially in supporting residents and businesses during the coronavirus pandemic. And whereas each year since 1991, the National Association of Counties has encouraged counties across the country to elevate awareness of county responsibilities, programs, and services. And whereas Tarrant County is known for its hospitals, schools, businesses, local nonprofits and citizens coming together to help one another thrive. Whether we are dealing with drought, wildfires, flooding, severe weather, tornadoes, and especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby recognize the month of April 2022 as National County Government Month and encourage all county officials, employees, schools, and residents to participate in county government celebration activities. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 12th day of April 2022. And Your Honor, I move ratification of this resolution.
And I'll second. And I will add that I've been involved with NACO for over 24 years. Commissioner Allen is one of the vice chairs of our large urban county caucus. Commissioner Fickus, one of the vice chairs of our transportation. We have been very involved with NACO, and the thing that I say about NACO as well as about our Texas Association of Counties, which we've all been involved with also. Commissioner Johnson is a prior president of the Texas Association of Counties as well as the Judges and Commissioners Association, is when we come together to discuss issues and the solutions to those issues and those problems that our people are facing. I would tell you that after 24, 25 years, if you put all the people in a room, I couldn't point out the Republicans from the Democrats. We are there to solve the problems of the issues that our citizens are facing on a daily basis, and we really we focus on those. And I tell the story that there was a ledge conference, it was several years ago, where we had two political pundits, one from each of the major parties, and in the course of their discussions, they asked us to raise our hands if we were Republicans or Democrats, and the audience booed and refused to raise their hands. And that speaks to the reason we were there is not to be partisan, but to be very nonpartisan, because we knew that the issues that we were facing and that our people were facing were not issues of red, blue, purple, green, whatever it might be. So I have enjoyed very much my service to NACO over the years, and I know that the other folks that, whether it be NACO, whether it be TAC, this court is a leader in many, many different areas, both at the state level, at the national level, and at the regional level, and I think that's something that we should be very, very proud of. Any other comments at this time? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Commissioner Court announcements. Any announcements at this time?
Yes, I have two announcements, Judge. The first is we will be hosting our quarterly Precinct 2 JPS Bond Community Update meeting on May 11th. I believe that's a Wednesday, May 11th, from 11 a.m. to 12:30. The entirety of these updates, we've done them via Zoom, and we will continue to do that. So you will hear from representatives from our Hospital District Board, as well as from Dr. Karen Duncan, JPS CEO, as well as folks from our project management, our program management team. So again, that is Wednesday, May 11th at 11 a.m. via Zoom. We will be sending out a save the date shortly later today, where you can access the link to register. And then also, I just wanted to recognize a bit of history, pretty substantial history that took place last week, and that is the the bipartisan group of senators that confirmed Judge Jackson to the United States Supreme Court. Someone asked me last week if I watched the confirmation hearings, and I said, well, I watched as much of it as I could, because quite frankly, it was quite triggering for me. For anyone who is in a seat where you have been the first, the only, and the other, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I did not want to let today pass, this meeting pass, without recognizing that moment in history. And obviously, our county, our state, our country, we have still a tremendous amount of work to do, while also celebrating all of the work that has been done by those that came before us. So that's all I have.
If no one else has anything else, I would ask that you keep the Barr family in your prayers. Mayor Barr lost his wife. She had been fighting cancer, and she lost that fight, I believe it was either yesterday or early the day before. So
I hadn't heard yet. Thank you for letting me know.
she had gone back into hospice at James West. So
thank you.
please keep that family.
I had lunch with Mayor Barr yesterday, and he did not mention it at all.
Well, then I may be mentioning it too soon, but please.
He and his family will certainly be in our prayers.
Yes. Court members, you have before you our consent agenda with the exceptions noted in our announcements.
Move approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Members of court, if we could now go to the briefing section. We're going to go to item B, which is presentation concerning Haltom City Tax Increment Financing District Zone Number 2. Ms. South is here to address the court at this time.
Hey, Megan, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Okay. So the city of Haltom City has established a 725-acre tax increment financing reinvestment zone. It's located along Denton Highway, or 377, in the Belknap Commercial Corridor. This TERS was established to primarily facilitate the development and mostly redevelopment of commercial activity along these corridors, and also renovate public infrastructure. It's expected to raise the taxable value within the zone from its current value of about $25 million to over $447 million over the 30-year life of the zone. And today we have Kirk McDaniel from Petty & Associates, and then also Rex Phelps, the city manager for the city of Haltom City, and Sedona Faust, the assistant city manager. I'm going to let them give you the overview of the plans for the TERS, and then I'll come back after when they're finished.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. It's been a good morning.
It's been a very good morning.
Like Megan said, my name is Kirk McDaniel with Petty & Associates. Thank you for your time. Also here is the city manager of Haltom City, Rex Phelps, as well as the assistant city manager, Sedona Faust. So if you have any really tough questions, we have the smart people in the room. This TERS was created late in 2021, really to capitalize on all of the growth that Haltom City's been experiencing over the past few years. They have about 3,500 new residential units that are going to be coming into the city here in the next couple of years, as well as over 1.7 million square feet of industrial type uses that are open up and are already under contract for leases. So there's a tremendous amount of growth in residential and in industrial, and the city recognized that one of the areas where they could continue to grow and redevelop was in commercial uses. And so they put together this TERS. We helped them put this one together to focus specifically on those commercial corridors. So you can see on the map here, we did take any vacant land that was undeveloped. There's really not very much left in the city, but what was vacant, we went ahead and included within the TERS. And then you can see we focus very strongly on those two commercial corridors, 377 and Belknap, with the hope that this could be used as a tool to help redevelop those areas over the life of the zone, which is 30 years.
So Megan already touched on those priorities, but essentially it's creating a dedicated funding mechanism to revitalize these areas. As she mentioned, we put together as part of this a preliminary project and finance plan, and included in that is a feasibility study. And so we looked at the average growth that was occurring in the city over the past 10 years, and we applied that to what would happen in the zone. Likely this is conservative because we only include 2% value increases, and we include 2 years of no growth each decade to simulate unforeseen circumstances like COVID or financial crises that seem to happen. But as you can see here, there's about 450 million, rounding up, of new value that we expect to see over the life of the zone. That translates to actual dollars that the county would receive from the properties within the zone. And I'll touch on that a little bit more later. But cumulatively, the request of the city is for the county to participate at 50%. And cumulatively, that'd be about 7.1 million over the life of the zone. And that number would also function as a cap at any potential participation agreement. And then if the county proceeded to participate in the zone, we would also approach the college district and request their participation in the zone as well. Again, also at 50%. You can see there, though, the city over the life of the zone is expected to contribute about $20 million into the TERS fund, the county 7.1, and the college district 4 million. As far as the distribution of the actual revenue, assuming the county participated at 50%, you can see the chart here. The green bar is the amount of dollars from this property that's currently going to the county. Then the blue and the yellow is the new dollars that would be generated off of those increases in values. With the 50% participation rate, it's split out 50-50 between what would go back to the county and what would be contributed to the TERS fund. As you are all aware, whenever the TERS is completed and terminates in 2051, then all of that increment would then return to the county. I know in the past we've brought forward to you guys a couple of unique TERSs where we bifurcated the project costs into ones that the county would fund versus wouldn't fund. This is not the case with the Haltom City TERS. These are all core public infrastructure projects, roads, water, sewer, that the city really needs within these commercial corridors, and those are the only projects that are included in this preliminary plan.
So none of these projects are also included on our transportation?
That's correct, none of them are. And so we've identified there the rough locations of those, and then within the preliminary plan, there is a map that identifies where those different projects are. The last thing I was going to mention is that this is a preliminary project and finance plan, and so the statute requires that a final plan be approved. We've kind of had a change of policy from the county, as I understand it, where we're requesting participation before that final plan has been approved, so that you guys have the opportunity that if you choose to approve the participation agreement, you would also appoint a board member to the TERS board and have some influence over that final plan and how it gets developed. So if there were projects that you wanted to add, that could happen in the final plan. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Do I have any questions? Okay. What's our, Megan, what is our next steps?
So we'll work with Kirk and the city to develop the participation agreement, and we'll bring it back. Usually it takes about a month or so to get it back in front of you.
Is this another one of these 30-day things?
No, this is different. That's only for tax abatements.
Okay.
I will say there was one little mistake in that presentation. It had our tax rate at 0.229. It should be 0.224. So we'll edit that, change it out.
Yeah, but if it was in there at 0.229 and that's what they're on their Excel worksheet, that impacts your financing plan, so.
It would lower the cap, and we can accommodate that in the participation agreement.
Okay.
Any other questions for us?
I don't think so.
We'll work
Thank you very much. Thank y'all for coming out today. Appreciate you. Is Vinny coming, is he supposed to come down next?
No.
We're not gonna, are you moving on to item number 1?
I'm going to our section, we're doing the tax refunding.
Could I, if you don't mind, I would like to call on our public comments. We have two, one from a Pam Oliver and one from a Thomas Tolinkasi. I'd like to go ahead and let those two do their comments at this time. So if you would like to come forward at this point in time, Ms. Oliver. Pull that microphone down so there you go.
That it? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Pam Oliver. I'm Amy Hill's. Amy Hill is my daughter. She had come to y'all asking for help. I was in the delivery room when my granddaughter was born, and she has been the light of my life ever since. I haven't seen her since August, 8 months. My daughter isn't allowed to be a mother, and we aren't allowed to be grandparents for absolutely no reason. Like our daughter, we have done nothing wrong to be abused and alienated from our granddaughter. All of this because of the upside-down, arbitrary, and capricious ruling that they used to discredit my daughter with CPS and the police before the evidence was ever back, in order to keep this going, to abuse my innocent daughter and my innocent granddaughter. We have been yelled at, threatened, and silenced, not allowed to testify or even speak. That is witness suppression and witness intimidation. I witnessed the goo on December the 8th, 2019, that came back positive for AP and P30. Those are components of semen. I have witnessed my granddaughter make numerous outcries, including her saying, "Daddy comes in, sings Row Row You Boat, and plays with my butt. Daddy likes my bathroom." She turned, faced me, and said, "Daddy likes my bathroom." She has said, "I'm scared of Daddy. I'm scared of his bed. There's a pink monster. It pokes me, hurts me, tells me not to tell Mommy." And so many more outcries. And yet, we, the witnesses, not just me, there are others, have never been allowed to testify. And nobody does anything to protect my innocent grandbaby. How long must she endure this torture? And this is torture every single day for more than 2 years. This is a travesty and a miscarriage of justice and a violation of my daughter's and my granddaughter's civil rights. Evil prevails when just men and women fail to act. And all of those involved have been complicit in the abuse of my granddaughter. No investigations, and the evidence has been ignored. I have witnessed my own daughter's own attorneys abuse her, lie to her, misrepresent her, and have refused to stand up and have covered up and have said that they have to protect the judge. This is abuse and corruption. Why would the child ever be given to the suspected abuser? Why wouldn't the innocent child be given the benefit of the doubt? This could just as easily have been one of your daughters or your granddaughter. What would you do? Where would you go for help? Nothing will ever change until we all stand up for the truth. And that's what we're doing here today. Standing on the truth. Standing up for the truth and justice of our innocent granddaughter and our innocent daughter. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver, for being here. Judicial ethics. Please just, there's an address you can, we do not have the ability to say anything. We do not have any jurisdiction over the courts. Please write to the Board of Judicial Conduct. I believe that would be your next step. I wish there was more we could do. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Mr. Tom Licassi.
Judge, can we clarify, this is general public comments?
Yes, it is.
Okay, because I signed up for a general.
I understand that.
All right, just want to make sure. This is still the exact form you need to keep coming back to, despite what you're told. The point of an open public speaking moment is the right of redress. In addition to the 5 commissioners, both the media watching and the public that listens or watches later can become allies and supporters of these folks' cause. I wanted to talk about good things since the judge at the beginning of the meeting talked about good things. I witnessed a specific thing the county does really well. To do that, I have to praise the county clerk specifically, something that I haven't seen anywhere else in the county. It's pretty cool, it's high tech, it's transparent, it's accountable, it's cordial, it's professional, and it is not the conduct you see in every department, but certainly with this added enhancement. If you go over to the county clerk's office and go across the street, the reception person and all the employees have a little plaque with a QR code asking for real-time feedback on your experience with that county entity. Honestly, it's such a great idea. Well, I'm glad somebody else spoke up to say they have that. My point is that it should be county-wide. Whether you're going to the probation office, whether you're dealing with the sheriff's department or the district attorney's office or the administrator's office, this is an enormously great idea. And the citizens should expect that this be something that's the routine in every single department. If the county clerk has to go and train all the other departments to do this, I've never seen a better element or use of interacting with the public than what I saw last week in that setting. Conversely, I wanted to set the record straight in my 1 minute left. Last week, the sheriff made a bunch of representations about his need to travel, and he exploited the unfortunate and untimely death of one of his deputies, claiming that that was the reason he needed 2 separate trips for 1 week long each. The truth is that what you voted for was to fund the honor guard for a memorial service that was part of a week-long conference in Washington, D.C. It is his habit to misrepresent, to omit, to minimize, to exaggerate, or to demean people in order to get his way. And as I pointed out last week, despite some of the people in the room clapping like seals when he finished his sensationalized speech, the reality is that he is not accountable to anyone. While I'll address that in a specific example during the civil service comment, he gets what he wants and he walks out of the room. What we want to know is he going to work with the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers this time when he goes to Washington, D.C.?
Okay, that concludes our public comments. We have comments that will be done throughout our agenda at various points. Mr. Mangus.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we could now go to the administrator section. We're going to take items 4 and 5. I'll just briefly lay this out. As you know, we have been working on the sale of voter-approved debt, and part of that is the review of some refunding abilities that we may have for 2013 and 2015 bonds. As we talked to you last week, we said that we were going to go out and do a closed offering on those 2 particular items, and we are here now to make a presentation to you as relates to both of those. I think you'll be very pleased with that. Also, at the conclusion of each of those 2 particular items, we're going to ask the court to approve the recommendations from the administrator's office, our financial advisors, and also our bond counsel. And with that, I'm going to ask Laura Alexander from Hilltop to come forward and address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Laura.
Morning.
Jump right in here.
So GK, for the items 4 and 5, I know we have these documents up here. The one that's for the 2 million, which is that? Is that 4 or 5?
The 2022 A's are 4.
Or, sorry, the
and the
figure.
B's are
Okay.
5.
There we go, okay.
That's
And
all.
the reason that we brought those there, we want to make sure that is the
I
operation
see
we're going
now.
to ask you to approve.
Okay,
not-
perfect.
Not to read right now. So.
Yeah, okay, I missed that, thank you.
Sure. So jumping in, as Mr. Maney said, we did do a competitive sort of bank placement approach on these refinancings to try to take advantage of rates before they continue to move away. And as we've talked about, these have to be done on a taxable basis for IRS rules. If you were to wait within 90 days of the call date, they can be done tax exempt. And so we've been sort of monitoring them, as you know, over time and decided, like I said, to try to take advantage of things quickly. So a bank placement approach was a competitive process. So we sent out a term sheet to 20 some odd banks, and then we got responses back yesterday morning, vetted them, ran them all, and are here to present the results today. I just want to kind of call out one thing. So banks can move in a different direction than the public market when it comes to how they offer this. So we have 3 different bids that are, I'm going to call Cinderella bids, as in clock strikes midnight and things revert, back. The idea is that these 3 banks bid a taxable rate initially during the required period the IRS mandates. And then once we get within that 90 days of the call date, there's technically a reissuance process. There's a new opinion given by the attorneys, and the financing converts to a tax-exempt rate. So it's sort of a hybrid approach. Again, so it doesn't exist in the public bond market. You don't see these kind of Cinderella bonds being offered publicly. Most buyers want either taxable bonds or tax-exempt bonds, but not something that converts. It's a little bit of a weird duck. But again, banks buy it and hold it for their own account, and they have the flexibility to build in this structure. And because of that, the results, I think, you'll be pretty pleased with, because we sort of get the benefit of the tax-exempt rates for 10 or 13 years in these cases, or 10 years in each case, once the call date arises. And if you have more questions on the taxable, the Cinderella conversion bonds, bond counsel is here, so Bob Dransfield with Norton Rose and Jonathan Kranz with Kelly Hardin Hallman. They can get into the specifics a little bit more if you want to question that, but we'll go ahead and walk through the results.
My only question is one that I asked Bob privately and got an answer privately, but I'd like that answer on the public record. And that is that this court will have to take an additional action once we get within 90 days of the call date in order to make this transaction be what it's designed to be. You're nodding your head. That's a yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to let the lawyers, do
When
the lawyering.
when does that have to
There
happen?
may need to be some clarification on that.
Within 90 days of the call date.
Well, is that like in 2020 something?
Call dates are different.
Judge,
for
members of
both
the court,
transactions.
good morning. Just in response to that, Commissioner, there's not a formal meeting of the Commissioner's Court that's required, but there is a notice that has to be given to the bondholder. So when the conversion takes place, you have to say that we're now within that 90-day period of time, so you have the ability to do the tax-exempt transaction. You give notice to the purchaser. They have to agree to do that. You also have to say that you're not in default, and other things have to take place, as Ms. Alexander indicated, that you have a new opinion that will be given, because this technically is a reissuance. So from a tax perspective, you have the taxable bond that starts out, then it gets reissued as a tax-exempt bond. There's no additional requirements to go through the Attorney General's office, for example. All that takes place at the start. But there is a need to have a notice to the purchaser. The purchaser has to agree to have that take place, and so there is that kind of cooperation, because you have a little different security when it converts over into the tax-exempt side. So it's not a formal action of the Commissioner's Court, but there is action by the county that needs to be given by notice to the purchaser. And it's pretty simple. And that'll just take place, as the time comes a little bit closer.
So what would the dates be that those notices would have to be issued?
Well, it's like 10 days before that during that period of time. So when you're anywhere within that 90-day period of when the...
Give me the date.
So April 17th, 2023 is the 90 days before
The
the
20.
2020 A bonds.
Okay.
And then April 17th, 2025 on the 2022 B bonds.
And so what you're saying is on those dates or somewhere around those dates, we, the county, we don't have to take any action, but notice has to be given by this court or by whoever buys these things from us today.
By
If
the
we choose-
county, it's the notice to the person that buys those today. So it's the notice from the county to the purchaser that says we're getting ready to make this conversion. The purchaser has to say, I'm willing to take that bond that has that conversion feature to it and move from the taxable rate to the taxable rate.
So it will be an administrative act at that point. It will not require a commissioner's court order. It just simply be administration will issue that document to this particular bank and say, now is the time if you want to convert this to a tax exempt. We agree. Because they're in the orders itself, it indicates that we're going to do that.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad I asked the question again, because I got clarification.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Bob.
So how much are we going to save?
Right, so on the 2022 A's, we received 7 bids. You can see the banks there on the left. Truist up there in green, it was the low-cost provider. The top 3 were all Cinderella approaches, and then you see the bottom 4 banks bid just a traditional taxable rate for the life of the bonds. So on Truist's proposal, the initial rate is 3.1%. Again, on April 17th, 2023, it converts to 2.45% based on this notice process that was just described. And on a blended basis, it was 2.638% is essentially what your cost of funds will be, assuming that conversion happens. Truist has more legal expenses, so we baked that in. That's the $31,000, so their transaction cost has a little higher legal team expenses that they're asking the county to pay for. And so all of that is rolled into the total savings in addition to all the transaction costs. So when you see the savings here, for comparison purposes, these are all after transaction costs. So a total of $3.1 million would be over the life of the transaction, and then the present value, where we discount it all back to today's dollars, is about $2.7 million. We measure savings, present value savings, as a percent of the amount we refunded to kind of view efficiency, and that's what that 9.7% is. Generally, we say things over 3.5% are worth considering. So this is well within that range. KeyBank and Amegy, like I said, bid similar structures, but with slightly higher rates. If the conversion, I'm going to call it the tax exempt reissuance, did not occur, you see the note there below that says the total savings would go essentially from the 3.1 million down to the 2.1 million, and the present value savings would drop about $900,000 from the 2.7 to 1.8. Obviously, we don't anticipate that, but I knew the question would probably come up. What if it doesn't convert? The Truist bid would still be the lowest cost provider with the most savings to the county.
Lowest cost, highest yield.
Highest savings, yeah, lowest cost, right? Other questions on this 2022?
Talk to me about, is the negative arbitrage something we are going to experience or could experience?
So it's already built into the savings. It's the opportunity cost, essentially, of not maximizing the savings, because part of it's going to be taxable, essentially. So those numbers become less important as they get smaller, but it's something that we've been monitoring. If you recall, Judge, it was over $1 million on the other transaction at one point, and I was concerned about that. These are fine, like I said, and the savings are true savings to you. You don't need to subtract anything or make any adjustments. The savings we're showing. And just to be clear, for comparison purposes, yesterday when we ran this summary, we were using the reinvestment rates for the escrow. So the bond proceeds go into an escrow account and are invested, and then they are actually used to redeem the bonds on the call date. So there's the interest rates that we're actually getting on the loan, if you will, from the bank, and then we have also interest rates on the escrow securities. And we used yesterday's rates for the comparison here, but we're subject to today's rates when we actually lock it in, because you haven't taken action yet. And so the savings, the ultimate savings, are slightly different than this. So, but for an apples to apples
And that's the last page,
yes,
page 4 is today's rates?
Yes, yes. I'm going to
with your permission, I'll move on to the 2022B results, and then we'll wrap it up, and you guys can take action. So slightly fewer bids on this one, 5 banks, mostly because of the size. So this is a larger transaction. This is about $47 million. The other one was about $30 million, and some of the smaller banks just couldn't participate in both, and they took the smaller one. I mean, which makes sense and not surprising, but still great interest with 5 banks stepping up to be considered for this transaction. Again, Truist was the lowest cost. The initial rate is 3.13%. That's a taxable rate, converting to the 2.47% in April of 2025. So the economics on this one are not quite as attractive on a relative basis because you have a longer period in which that taxable rate will run. The savings actually are higher from a dollar perspective because we're refunding more bonds. So the dollars look better, but sort of slightly less efficient. That's what I would describe it as. So that 9.7% is now 8.2% on a comparison purposes.
Which is still good.
Yeah, still great. Absolutely. I mean, should back up for a minute and say these results are very attractive relative to what we've been looking at in the last couple of months because we get the benefit of the tax-exempt bonds and tax-exempt interest rate for the bulk of the transaction. And then similarly, I footnoted were the reissuance to not occur in the tax-exempt, you can see the savings would be in the note there at the bottom.
So, Laura, before you move on, for this Truist Bank, it says the negative arbitrage is $4. That's correct? That's not a typo?
That was correct yesterday. It's slightly more today. And part of that is because it's a longer escrow, and those rates are higher, and we can sort of maximize that a little bit more. But you're right, it's oddly $4.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll chip in $1 if y'all want.
So to wrap up, based on the final sizing, we're recommending that the court consider, so item number 4 would be approving the $29.22 million limited tax refunding bond series 2022A. You see the total savings there of $3.1 million. And then we'll also recommending that the court approve $46.49 million limited tax refunding bonds series 2022B for total savings of about $4.1 million. And then on a combined basis, that's $7.2 million total savings that'll be realized between 2023 and 2035, so spread out over those years. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
I want to make sure I understood in the context of these bonds, the definition of the present value savings.
Mm-hmm. So we take the gross cash flow savings, so comparing the new payments to your old payments, and then we discount it back at, essentially it's like the blended borrowing cost. It's actually the arbitrage yield, technically, is the term we use for that particular rate. So that rate's around the blended borrowing cost rate is a proxy for what we discounted it back at. And so that's in today's dollars. Again, just to, apples to apples in the way we talk about it.
So it's how much you'd have to have today to make that much money into the future.
Exactly. I know the county doesn't deal with present value dollars generally because of the way your budget works, and tax collections are always in the future. But in our industry, we talk about present value savings and then talk about how to compare that to the amount you're refunding to determine the efficiency. So it's sort of an industry standard, really, in public finance.
Okay, just making sure it wasn't any different than any other reference to present value savings. So I've heard.
Move approval of what she said.
No.
Second.
And that is going to be for both item 4 and 5.
5, correct. So we have a motion and a second to do what you said for
Authorize
22A and 22B.
Are you guys good with that? I'm looking at the lawyers, okay?
It's not near as many words, therefore they shouldn't charge as much.
Exactly.
Nice try.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Laura, is there anything else we need to be looking at?
These are your only 2 callable bonds. We're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll be back with the Big Rock program.
Okay.
And this was a recommendation from our new financial advisory team.
Very good.
That's a yes. Thank you.
Members of the court, we can now go to the beginning of the administrator section. Items 1 and 2, Ms. Camarena was going to do those presentations. Mr. Schaffer is going to do item number 3. We're going to do a quick change. What we're going to do, I forgot that Vinny was waiting in the wings to come forward with his 3 slides. So right now we're going to go to the briefing item, and Mr. Tanasia is going to make a presentation to the court.
Good morning.
Hi, Vinny.
Hello. Well, I'm back again, and hopefully it'll be fairly quick. Tarrant County, obviously, we're at a low in COVID, so things are looking good. Generally, we've flatlined at a low level, so we've quit going down, which is okay, but that's okay. I mean, we're at the lowest that we can be at this point. Just to kind of quickly shift focus to, again, being situationally aware, the pandemic is not over. There's a lot of COVID hotspots overseas, and a lot of those are travel destinations. A lot of our folks from the U.S. travel there. So I've drawn kind of 3 big circles on a world map. It's kind of hard to see because it's dark background. But Europe is lit up right now pretty heavily. UK, Italy, France, Germany, all of these countries are experiencing pretty heavy COVID outbreaks. Similarly, Far East Asia, Japan, Korea, a few other spots, in the eastern part of Asia, they're pretty heavily lit up. You've all heard news about China. Shanghai's been on a lockdown, and a few other places. And then Oceania, Australia, New Zealand area. A lot of these are tourist destination spots, business travel, all kinds of things. So again, it's only a hop and skip away. So our advice is people traveling overseas need to be cautious. State Department has a website that actually has a health advisory along with other, local advisories there may be. And then CDC also has a location where you can go find your destination-related health alerts. So again, anybody traveling overseas, make sure you're masking up, taking all the precautions. If you're eligible for a booster dose, get your booster at least a couple weeks before you go. All of those things together will keep you safe in your travels overseas, and hopefully you won't be bringing back the gift of COVID to all of us here in the U.S. In the U.S., there are some trouble spots that are starting to brew. We've talked about the Northeast having a little bit of uptick in activity. As a result, Philadelphia yesterday reinstated a mask mandate for the city. And there's other parts in the country that have just some trouble spots. Central Florida, for example, has some uptick in activity, and a few other spots around the country. So we're keeping an eye out on things because they travel quickly. But generally in Texas, we're in a nice low at this point. So, get out and enjoy. Spring weather is nice, despite all the storm activity. But this would be the time to do normal things. And, if the wave comes back, we'll layer up again with strategies and hopefully get through it again. That's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions.
Question regarding the second booster shot.
Yes, sir.
Is it necessary for a person who had a positive COVID test in December and a non-conclusive COVID test in February, March-ish? Is it necessary for that person to have a negative COVID test before receiving the second booster?
It is not. So we've, early on in the pandemic, they were looking for a negative result before doing other things. But later they realized a lot of the tests were still catching virus particles being, excreted out of the body for several months. So they've quit relying on a negative test because the person's not considered infectious at that time. And just having the virus coming out of the body doesn't really interfere with your ability to take the vaccine. So it is not required to have a negative test if you have a long dated history. If you were recently ill, like in the last couple of weeks, give it a couple of weeks before you go. But if it's been December surge, yeah, everybody's fine, whoever wants to take a COVID shot.
Thank you, Vinny.
I just have one question about the flu.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the flu doing in Tarrant County right now?
So yes, other updates. Flu is coming down nicely. So again, it's following its seasonal pattern. It's late in the season to still have this high of flu activity, but it's coming down real nice. And then Tarrant County's doing okay, but our neighboring county, Dallas, had their first West Nile case positive. So for the area, that's a kind of harbinger kind of an event. So we're going to watch what happens with our West Nile activity. Typically, we start to percolate really heavily around 4th of July. So this early in the season, a neighboring county having a case gives me a little bit of a pause. So we'll keep an eye on that as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinny.
Now we can go to the administrator section. Ms. Camarena.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners.
Good morning, Crystal.
Item 1, we are asking court to receive and file the Tarrant County COVID-19 Weekly Recovery Report.
Move to receive and file.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Kristen, I was just going to ask, there's someone new in sending these via email. I don't think we've met that person. Or have they been recognized in court?
No, not
Okay.
yet. Yeah,
Who would
we
like
did
to
make
lead
a
it?
switch when Jason moved to the Budget Risk
That's
Management
right.
Office. Yes,
Okay,
so
cool.
we will make a point to introduce Katie at our next court meeting.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Item 2, this is discussion and possible action regarding the Tarrant County American Rescue Plan Act Fiscal Recovery Funds Program Budget. This is a multi-part item, and so I'll start with A. There will be 3 requested actions today. The first, we are requesting that Commissioners Court approve the state and local fiscal recovery funds policies and procedures document. This has been provided to you. This is a guide that will guide rather the internal and external program solicitation, eligibility determination, and contract management. This is really a codification of all of the policies and procedures that have been established by the court.
And this relates to our first call for projects from community-based organizations.
This actually, this first document relates to all of our ARPA program expenditures, all of our FRF expenditures, so this is separate from the call for proposals document. This is a best practice recommended by Treasury as part of our approved policies and guidelines for use and monitoring of our ARPA funds.
Move approval of item A.
Second.
Okay.
And I do have a question.
Sure.
A2?
This is item 2A. Yes, sir. That was.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second. You look like you've got some questions.
I had a question. I think it was on this document under section 5 where it talked about prohibitions. And you may have to, I'm fine with moving forward with it. You may have to get back to me on an answer. I'm trying to find it in the electronic version.
That is actually the next document.
Oh, is it? Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I'm good. Thanks, Judge.
Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So item B, staff is requesting that the court authorize the $35.5 million state and local fiscal recovery funds call for proposals for community programs. This is the first of what will be 4 either programs and/or grants that staff is working on as approved in the budget by court. This call for proposals includes all of the items outlined in the budget under call for proposals with the exception of housing, the small business grant program, and child care.
Move approval of item 2B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item A2B, 9A2B. Where in this process did we talk about the 501c3s, or where do we talk about us right now because we're limiting our dollars to going to nonprofits?
So currently for this call for proposals, what's recommended in the call is nonprofit and public, including governmental and quasi-governmental agencies. And we're not restricting the nonprofit designation to a C3.
But it is restricting profit businesses from participating in call for projects.
In this particular call, yes, sir. So we've had discussions with various county departments as well as our consultant. And as there's a requirement that all program income go back into the program, that is an inherently nonprofit action. And so if the court wishes to entertain a separate call for private entities, that is something that we could discuss further, but it doesn't quite fit with the intent of this program.
So I guess my question is let's say we have a call for project and 2 companies are coming forward to do a specific project. One's profit, one's nonprofit. The profit one happens to be asking for less money to do the same thing. We can't take that or evaluate it because we're not programmed to look at the private sector.
Not for this particular call for programs.
So why would we not want to do that for this particular call for programs?
Is that something that the auditor would like to speak to? I know we've had some conversations.
Good morning, Renee.
Good morning. So the answer is the court can have discretion.
You need to be sure and speak into the mic.
The court can have discretion to set up your calls however you see fit. From a bookkeeping accounting perspective and the program income that Kristen referenced, that's the way it has to work. We don't have any choice in that. If program income is made, the private company charges a profit and makes a profit, that's program income, and it has to go back into the program. Now, if you want to, I suppose today, not approve this and have discussion about do you want to completely readdress whether or not you want to include private enterprise, then that's certainly something with legal and others we could do. But from an accounting standpoint, it would create quite a mess. And then I don't think the private companies probably understand that they also couldn't have their program income.
So we do want to approve this, and as Kristen said, that if we want to do a different type of call for projects that would include for-profits, then we could do that also. But we would want to bifurcate that process and approach this for nonprofits and governmental entities.
Because there'd be an education on the part of the privates, and the way you structured it and everything else in my mind would have to work slightly different, because they can't function as a pure profit-oriented entity, even if the cost back to us is less because of grant and federal reporting requirements for federal money related to program income.
It was my understanding from discussions I had this morning with your assistant county managers that we would be doing additional calls for projects, and that one of those would be specifically related to economic development and support of business enterprises.
That's true. That's true, because this does not include, let me rephrase it. Do you want to answer that question? The small business grant program.
Sure. The $25 million that court allocated and approved in the budget for a small business grant program is completely separate from this, and that would include support for profits.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, and I understand, and I'm not willing to hold up the vote on it today to go forward, but I think it points out that if you had a private business who could do it for whatever the reason is, they can do it for less and serve more people with less money, then we have, there's an inequity someplace in there that actually goes against the whole purchasing realm of deal, even though we're not under purchasing laws.
Well,
I
we
don't
do-
think.
We are under competitive bidding requirements by the Treasury, so it's slightly different than our statutorily required purchasing laws. So that's why this is running out of the administrator's office and not through Melissa and her team, although they have reviewed it. This program falls under a particular section of the final rule that is intended for nonprofits and their ability to report on all of the requirements for the final rule is a big part of really our desire to keep this to nonprofits. And I think Renee mentioned a little bit the reporting aspect, but private businesses are not used to handling federal grant funds. And so I am making an assumption and saying that I think we'd be hard pressed to find a private business who would want to comply with the burden of these grant funds while it's still maintaining zero profit.
One more statement and then I'm through.
Sure.
Nonprofit hospitals sometimes make a whole lot more money than for-profit hospitals and yet still pay no tax.
Sure. And a foundation of a for-profit hospital would be eligible to apply, a nonprofit foundation.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Of course, all my discussion, I don't think it had anything to do with what we were talking about, but it was an interesting discussion.
Yeah. Okay, so, Kristen, the question that I had, I actually reread it and I understand it. So I didn't have the question on the prohibition, but I did want for you to speak briefly about what staff's recommendation is on the outreach to get the news of the RFP out to the community so that we get a good return.
Sure. So we have 3 parts to that. The first will be a direct email to a little over 200 community organizations. The second will be a press release. I'll be working with Mr. Hanna to get out over the next day or two. And the third will be social media. So we are going to work with Regina and her team to push this out as widely as possible.
And we're also going to put it on our website, is that correct?
Yes, everything will link back to our website, and there will be a banner on the front page.
Next.
Okay. So item 3, we're asking, well, it's actually item D, 2D. There is no action on item 2C today. Item 2D, we're asking court to receive and file a list of agenda items that appear on today's Commissioners Court agenda.
Move to receive and file.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners.
Hey, Russell.
So on Administrator's item number 3, we are asking to receive and file the Tarrant County Recovery Plan Performance Report. So this is an updated recovery plan performance report as requested by Treasury 3 weeks ago. And I think it would be appropriate to give a shout out to Audit, admin, budget, and everybody that has been working more or less around the clock to put together something to be responsive to the U.S. Treasury to show that Tarrant County's Commissioners Court has allocated all of your funding through the fiscal area, or the fiscal areas and the goals. And so we are just receiving and file. This was submitted to Treasury last Friday as requested.
Move to receive and file the report with the appropriate attaboys to the various county departments that you listed.
Second, and with a request, I don't know if this was already sent electronically, but if it has not, if it could be.
Yes, ma'am. We'll
Okay.
make sure it gets electronically sent.
Thank you. This is great.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Russell.
Finally, members of the court, on item number 6, we're requesting that the court grant approval to the county administrator to submit an application for vacation or closure of street or alley right-of-way to the city of Fort Worth for vacation of Lamar Street, right-of-way between Belknap Street and Weatherford Street, and authorize the county administrator to sign the related documents.
So Lamar Street's going on vacation?
I'm sorry?
That's what I heard.
They're gonna close those two streets for some purpose.
Actually, it's going to be North Lamar Street between Belknap and Weatherford. That's the street that is between the Curry Building and the big jail. And we want to take ownership of that so that as we build the new elevator in the Curry Building, it's going to have to extend out into the street right away.
Move for
So
approval.
it's only going on a brief vacation.
Actually, that street will no longer be a street. It will be our property.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson? Say that again.
Same question.
What's the question?
You have to buy it?
Right now, we're asking that the city donate that street to us.
And if the city asked us to donate something to us, what would our attorneys say?
And the city asks.
Quid pro quo.
Don't even ask.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
We'll just let that go unanswered.
Cross that bridge when we get to it.
Ms. Tidwell?
So the good news today is the county audit for FY21 is finished. The continuing disclosure statement was finished. And so Deloitte will be coming at a future court meeting to present with the audit. But since the financial accounting section headed by Laura Weiss and Linda Castillo finished those, they've been working hard, and today we're asking you to receive and file 3 monthly financial statements, October 21, November 21, and December 21 of the Tarrant County offices. So we're trying to get caught up.
Move to receive and file those 3 listed reports.
Second.
Statements, sorry.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mike, are you next? Looks like you are. Come on down. You're anxiously awaiting.
Morning, or, yeah, still morning.
Good day, members of the court. We have 2 items for your consideration today. Both of them are ARPA items. The first one is approval of professional services contract with Air Balancing Company related to the Energy Recovery Unit Enthalpy Wheel Replacement Project in the amount of $21,710.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Our second item is a approval of professional services contract with MEPC Consulting Services, Engineering Services, for engineering services related to the Green Bay Jail Rooftop Unit HVAC Replacement Project in the amount of $97,570. $500.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mike, thank you for being very responsive on our little project we're working on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Ms. Glenn, come on down.
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning. It's still
Morning.
Tina. So the next 4 items that we have are waivers. The first one, get to that part of our agenda. No, thank you. So the first waiver is from the 371st District Court. Judge Brian Hill has a court coordinator who left county service. At the end of March, Judge Hill is requesting a waiver of 312 vacation hours effective April 16th. We're estimating a net cost to the general fund of approximately $10,987. That does include fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So we have our second waiver. This time it's from Constable Precinct 4. This was the item that was pulled last week. Constable Bedford is requesting that the court waive 117 vacation hours effective April 13th. He has a deputy sheriff who left county service on March the 4th. We are estimating net savings to the general fund of approximately $810 if this item is approved.
You say savings. I thought it was a cost in a cost to the general fund. Is it a savings or a cost?
For Precinct 4, let me just double check. It's
a
savings. So the cost of the waiver is $5,100. The constable has named a replacement, and so we're looking at salary savings of a little bit more than $6,000. So in total, that would give us net savings of about $810.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So our next waiver is from Precinct 4. Commissioner Johnson is requesting a waiver. His equipment maintenance supervisor left county service. We're requesting a waiver of 312 vacation hours. We're looking at a net cost to road and bridge of about $2,000. That does include fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And then our last waiver is from the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Wayburn is requesting the court waive 360 vacation hours effective May 7th. This is related to the departure of Chief Simons. He'll be leaving at the end of this month. His replacement has been selected. If approved, we're looking at a net cost to the general fund of approximately $18,260, including fringe benefits.
Is replacement in-house?
The replacement is Calvin Bond.
Is it in-house?
Calvin, pardon?
He's in-house. Is he one of the?
He's in-house.
Is he one of the 10 protected now? So there's going to be a vacancy in that particular position. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out here in the shuffle of the deck chairs, if there's a possibility that the next one on that waiver is not going to be asked to be waived also.
I don't have any knowledge about that. I can certainly look into that.
Okay.
That could be a big
Move approval.
shuffle and wave, if I'm thinking what you're thinking.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Yeah, because we really don't, because we've opened up another position. What happens in that situation? Because he's got so many hours. Let's just assume that the one that's moving from one position on the deck to another position on the same deck, does his hours go with him, and therefore when the next person comes along, we don't have to worry about hours?
So the waivers only come to you when when an individual, as in the case with Mike Simons, is actually leaving county service, and so there'll be a payout related to his terminal benefits. And so that's the part that we're asking you to waive. So when that position gets filled, the resulting vacancy, it depends upon who fills that vacancy.
And so somewhere down the line, if we don't fill the vacancy immediately, then the savings from that position's pay
It offsets
will
whatever the
offset
costs
this
would be.
$18,000 that we're talking about.
Potentially, just depends upon where the shuffle occurs.
And when.
And
But
when.
also,
And
if
when.
we replace that person with somebody who's already on the staff. There's not a payout, so there's nothing to waive.
Correct.
Right. So the 18,000 can do nothing but, and I better not say that. We'll just leave it where it's at.
Won't work on this one, Judge.
Yep, yep. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And then I believe item 8 was removed from consent, and I'm not sure how you'd like for me to proceed with that one.
So we're recommending that the Commissioners Court receive and file the Sheriff's
Okay.
Civil Service meeting report of April 1, 2022.
Yes.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We do have an audience participation form. Mr. Tomakasi, come on down.
Thank you, Judge Whitley, Commissioners. I'd like to remind the audience to preserve all of the records of all of your electronic devices that you use during this meeting. They're subject to open public records requests. I wanted to comment on the Civil Service Commission and specifically on one of the agenda items, in part in the interest of kindness, something that came to my attention when it comes to honoring our deputies when they pass away. Perhaps the Civil Service Commission or the Sheriff's Association, whatever collective bargaining entity that interacts with the Civil Service Commission, could establish a unique rule that kind of dovetails with Rule 7.105, which is a peace officer's mental health leave. I'm glad that that's something that has been taken in consideration. I think that's not just kindness, but pragmatic. It goes strictly and almost specifically to the heart of almost an epidemic we have with law enforcement, where suicide occasionally occurs. I point this out because if there is a suicide of one of our first responders and they're a county employee, everyone knows how difficult it is to make funeral arrangements to cope with that extra layer of grief and shock. And I think that the honor guard for the Sheriff's Department is a benefit. Now, it's not really that much of a benefit for the deceased, but for their survivors, their loved ones, and their coworkers. In the past, the sheriff has denied honor guard for a particular deputy who ended his life untimely. That was the worst day of that deputy's life, probably, and a pretty tough day for everyone that surrounded him. I wish that we had better ways of reducing and eliminating suicide, but I do think that it is not the discretion. In fact, it's unconstitutional to apply a religious test by a particular administrator to deny this benefit to one of our deputies, but it happened. Both you and the sheriff, all 5 of you, took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And it is not appropriate to apply one's individual religious perspective on that particular event and deny this benefit to one of your employees.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Judge, if I could take just a moment to remind employees in the court that we're in the middle of enrollment for our newest benefit, that short-term disability. So we've had several virtual meetings that were well attended. We had a departmental head virtual meeting, I believe it was last week. We had some really good questions, some good conversations. So I think there's quite a bit of interest. And so I would encourage employees who are interested in learning more to reach out to our Benefit Service Center on the 3rd floor. I think it's extension 2861, I believe. That's PBSC. And then just one last reminder that enrollment ends on April the 29th. Thank you.
You mentioned enrollment, so I'm going to just completely go to 180 degrees. NACO this year is at the Gaylord in Aurora, Colorado. They do not have as many rooms as we normally have participants. register early, or you will end up in one of the 5 outlying hotels for that conference.
That was a 180.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I couldn't go, but you know, senior moments and things come through, and some stop, some don't.
Thank you.
Melissa.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Melissa.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chris has still got a tie on today. He dressed up last week. I'm just telling you.
We have 6 items for your consideration this afternoon. The first item is an award recommendation for RFP number 2022-007. This is our annual contract for staff augmentation services for information technology, awarding to the various vendors listed per contract terms.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And the second item is an award recommendation regarding RFP number 2022-054. This is our annual contract for Reconnecting Youth Program for Juvenile Services, awarding to youth advocate programs in the amount of $44,973.18. We're also requesting contract approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The third item is an award recommendation regarding bid number 2022-071. This is our annual contract for COVID-19 antigen rapid self-test kits, awarding to the primary vendor SITA Business Systems and the secondary QYK brands per unit price.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The fourth item is an award recommendation regarding bid number 2022-077. This is our annual contract for purchase of digital copiers, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors listed per unit price.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The fifth item is an award recommendation for RFP number 2022-088, our annual contract for offender defendant pay DWI education, DWI repeat offender program, and drug offender education programs for CSCD, awarding to the various vendors listed per section per contract terms.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And the sixth item, we're requesting approval to conduct negotiations for RFQ number 2021-143, consulting services for space study plan for facilities management, awarding to the various vendors listed.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Allen, you got a slew of them.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Judge. So a number of interlocal agreements for the city of Mansfield. So move approval of item 9M1, letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Fickus?
Yes, I have interlocal with the city of Haslett. I would move for approval.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two additional items that we'd like to bring to you today. The first one is item C. This is the electric vehicle charging station grant opportunity. Ms. McMillan is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. You may recall about a month ago, representatives from the Council of Governments came and presented information about a call for projects for an electric vehicle stations to charging stations that could be placed in the county on public property. I've laid out for you some of the parameters of that grant project, and we wanted to circle back with court today to get direction on if and how staff should proceed on this grant application. As you can see, the application deadline is quickly approaching on April 22nd for round one. If we choose not to or are not able to get everything together, because this will take some coordination with our transportation and facilities and purchasing to get this grant application together in time, we do have the opportunity to apply also at the end of May, by May 20th, and at that time, those grants funds available will be what is left from after the first round. There's only $1 million total for the grant program. So what we're asking today is to see if this is something that court would like us to move forward with. Some of the requirements are...
Is the $1 million for everyone?
$1 million for everyone, correct. So because of that, obviously if one entity came in and asked for a lot of charging stations, they may or may not get that. There were some thoughts that maybe we might want to look at this as a pilot project and only pick one location or maybe two locations to put these charging stations at. I know there was discussions last time about various locations at either precinct garages or at the precincts of courthouses. One of the things that has changed since the last time the presentation was made is that they have to be open to the public, but they don't have to be open to the public 24 hours. If there was a close of business, say at one of your precinct garages and it was parked, it was at a parking space that was behind a fence, it can be closed during that time. So that was one change. The other change was that we were told that the charging station had to be free cost. There was no cost the whole time that we were under that 5-year grant activity, but that has changed also. Now we just have to provide it free until August 31st of 2024 for a little over 1 year. The construction of these sites have to be complete by the end of July of 2023.
Lisa, is this agendized for us to take action today?
Right now, we just want to get direction for the staff to either proceed, and if so, do we choose one site, two sites? We need to try to find out, because if we are going to try to work, I don't know that we can make the April 20th deadline. We don't have a commissioners court meeting.
We don't have another meeting before April 20th. I don't know why we're discussing this.
Well, I think we're brief. We could agendize it if we want. I mean, we can vote on it if we want to.
I had a question, and maybe it was already asked, but you said $1 million to go through the COG region of 13,
Correct.
12, 15 counties?
It has to be the counties that are in the non-attainment area.
So they got $1 million for all of us?
Correct.
Do you know how much one of these?
So a
the station they show a picture of here has got two charging units. What's that cost?
So we don't really know for sure, and COG didn't give us any direction, but I did some research. And depending on which size, the level 2 costs approximately $7,500, I think. And then when you have to get installation costs, and we'll have to work with the power company to have power, so we're estimating $20,000 to $25,000 for a level 2. The direct current fast charge, those units are about $50,000 each. And then again, the installation costs, I would think those would be around $60,000 to $65,000 each.
So you can run electricity that's required to that unit from somewhere. You can somebody's gotta buy the land.
Well, this has to be on entity-owned land, so that's why we were looking at the current sites.
Gotta pour the concrete, pave it.
No, that's, well, you might, but I mean, I would consider that you probably put it on an existing concrete pad.
So we have looked, facilities, and I looked at the precinct garages, and there are some areas where there's parking areas that would be actually outside most of the gates, closed gates, and that are kind of off to the side where we could then take those two parking spots, because this would be a dual charging station, and actually construct those there on current county land.
For the entire 12 county region, so.
It's a start. I mean, I get that, I agree that that number is pales in comparison to the need, but it is a start.
I would like to see us pick a pilot site and do 2 charging stations.
At that site, similar to her display?
2 sites.
2 sites.
With,
2 sites.
one of these fast charge things at each of the 2 selected sites.
So
that'll give you 4 charging opportunities at 2 different sites.
We really don't know that we'll be able to do this by April 22nd, but if the court would like, we can start working now toward the May 20th date.
I would like that.
And again, if there's not enough funds left over for the project to be funded in the May 20th, we have been hearing that in the infrastructure bill that there'll be additional funds that will come down, so we will already have been looking into this so that we will be prepared for any future grant funds that the federal government may come down with on this.
Which is exactly why I'd originally asked for this item to be agendized, not for this meeting, but a while back. And GK has sat in on a call with me about it. We've been talking about this in the large urban county caucus about this federal infrastructure bill, and then the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation. So even if we go through this process and let's say if we don't receive the grant funds, we've at least started the work for dollars that we know are coming, and we don't want to be left out, because as far as I know, we have no electric vehicle infrastructure in our entire county. And even if you don't use an electric vehicle, it's still very important from an economic development, a tourism standpoint. If you look at even all of the industrial manufacturing complexes, there are projects that we've missed out on, quite frankly, because we don't have the infrastructure in place. So I think we should move forward with applying in earnest, and then if we don't get it, we would have learned a lot and been prepared to respond to the federal dollars that should be coming, so.
How expensive is it to operate this station from an electric standpoint?
I don't have that information.
No, I don't. At least Commissioner Johnson, Lisa just said that she didn't have that information. I had a meeting scheduled last week that unfortunately got postponed to talk about the costs, or projected costs based off of areas that already have it in place, not necessarily through this grant, but so we're still gathering that information, but it's obviously very important. I think you had a second question.
I see a need. I think they'd be used. I just question the effort for us to submit something with the guidelines that you've got, and they've got $1 million. And I understand the government is, I want to say is it 600 million?
More than that.
For the nation, maybe? Maybe 60 billion for all I know. Probably 60 billion. But there's a huge amount of money in the infrastructure bill for this. And by the time you build it to United States government standards, you're going to spend $25,000, and you're not going to have plans adequate enough to submit them, it's gonna take more than that. You know, I mean, it's gonna be, these things are gonna cost a lot of money each. They're gonna cost money to maintain. I truly believe they're gonna be used. We're selling a lot of electric cars in the United States. I think it'll happen. But this $1 million deal, I'm not sure what COG's wanting you to do. And
I want to make sure where the revenue's going that they get for the charging. We're gonna be paying for the electricity, who's gonna be getting the revenue?
For the first year.
I assume it would be the electric company through July of, what was it, July of
Of August of '24.
August of 24.
And then at that point, we could.
We could charge.
I think the federal government's paying for the electricity.
For the federal program, yeah.
For their part.
Yeah.
During that time, it's
So I guess my question, and it follows up on Commissioner Fickus. When we submit whatever grant, do we have to submit plans or anything else at this point in time, or we just simply say, we're asking for funds to build a, 2 locations, 2 pilots, each with 1 fast charge and 1 with 1 regular charge?
We have to get in more detail than that. We'll have to actually have a budget, an estimated budget for installation costs. So that's why I said it's going to take some time for us to work together on several groups. And we actually have to show what site it's going to be at also.
Well, and I'm not opposed to moving forward, but I do not want to spend money drawing up architectural plans and doing all of this. I think I would just like an estimated, here's the budget that we think it will take, and go forward like that. And I would also suggest that if we're going to do the pilot, we might be more successful if we have it very convenient to one of the major interstates, whether it be 20, whether it be 30, 35.
Well,
I think the location at the maintenance center is crazy. That's not convenient to anybody.
So
I understand we've got building, electricity, but it's not convenient.
So part of this grant, and it is not to, you do not have to already have fleet vehicles that are electric vehicles, but they are wanting this to encourage entities to look at fleet vehicles. You don't have to, it's not a requirement to start transferring fleets to electric vehicles, but that was one of the thoughts of being at a precinct garage. If in the future we start getting electric vehicles. But at the same time, it's to be open to the public. So again, we're just seeking.
Apples and oranges.
We're just seeking direction.
You can't do both of those at the same time.
So if y'all are interested in us moving forward with this, we can do so and look for sites at a sub-courthouse, but it has to be on a county location.
Has to be what?
It has to be at a county location, on county property.
Sub-courthouse.
I would volunteer the Southwest Sub-Courthouse as one of the sites. And I would think that the Precinct 3 or Precinct 2, either one.
Wherever you all determine that would be the best and highest use. So.
Okay. Well, we will start getting something for a 1 or 2 site pilot project, but.
And if you need a vote to authorize the filing of the grant, since we're not going to be here between now and April the 22nd.
If you give us an acknowledgement that you want us to move forward with this project, then what will happen is that, as we have done previously when we didn't have a court meeting before we had to submit, we'll submit it through our office and then ask you all to ratify it.
But I do want to reiterate that I don't want us spending thousands of dollars at this particular time in outside. That doesn't mean that our folks' time can't be spent. I just don't want us to spend a whole lot of dollars with architects or contractors or whatever.
We fully understand that.
Okay.
We're not going to do that.
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go forward.
Your Honor.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I have an audience participation. Glad I hadn't taken any action.
I'm Mike Brewster from Linden, Texas, if anybody hadn't figured that out yet. And transportation.
We got that down, but we're seeing you in a different light today.
You are seeing me in a different light right now, that's for sure. Transportation is actually something that I know something about, and I've spent most of my life doing.
So are you saying you don't know about what else you were talking to us about?
I'm learning real quick, let's put it that way. And I'm working real hard at it. I'm here.
I know you are, Mike.
I'm going to ask y'all to put this aside for today, and the reason is, and actually, there are a lot of situations with electric vehicles might make sense for the county, but at this point in time, it doesn't seem like that we really know where that is, and there's some real long cost-benefit analysis that need to be done, and that some vehicles, I think it could work very well with, and some, I wouldn't recommend it in 100 years. You're talking about fast chargers and slow chargers, and you're deciding where you're going to put them. There are operational considerations that go into what type of parking space I'm going to put somebody's going to turn around quickly, I want a fast charger, but if it's overnight parking, the slow charger is the thing to go. And they're probably going in two different places. You're probably not putting them aside. We don't understand those issues here. Mr. Ficus, a few weeks ago, I saw you on the news. You were talking about gas taxes and transportation infrastructure and the stuff. Well, not to pun, but electric vehicles are going to short circuit some of that. And here we're being asked to supply electricity to the public, making these devices public. And I'm not sure why the government is getting involved in supplying the public fuel for their vehicles. And there's another thing that has bothered me for years, and I just happen to be here today, and I'm going to start talking about it, and that is grants. I know in y'all's case, you get an opportunity for some grants, and you say, oh, I can do a project, and then I don't have to carve it out of my budget. And I don't have to explain why I spent the tax dollars, my tax dollars, to y'all. It doesn't matter what level of government that comes from, I'm still a taxpayer, and I'm still paying for it. And particularly in the case of federal grants, it really irritates me when the local governments are spending that money, because I have to turn around and tell my 2-year-old granddaughter, we just okayed a whole bunch of money that you're going to have to pay for. And that's exactly what the situation is when you're talking about federal money, is we have decided that, yeah, we want this project, but we're not going to pay for it. We're going to pass it on to my grandchildren and your grandchildren. And I'm real dubious about that, and I don't think that gets talked about a lot. So I really think this needs to be tabled for now. It just, for a variety of reasons. We're just not ready for it. Thanks.
And Mike, what I would say, Mr. Brewster, what I would say regarding that, and to some degree it's the same thing with ARPA. I don't disagree with what you're saying about the debt we're leaving. And if we didn't do it, if we said we're not going to take our 408, we're going to send it back to the federal government. And if I thought that they would use and put that back into the treasury, so now I'm, as a taxpayer, I'm going to pay for the 408, but it's going someplace else.
Right, and I understand that argument too. I used to work for the federal government, and you may not know this, but I was able to, on a number of occasions, take a bunch of money and siphon it off at the end of the year and block it, and it never got spent. So, and once I hit September 30th, if it wasn't spent, it was saved. So, because I'd made budget requests certain ways, I put a lot of money back in the Treasury doing that method. But I understand your argument because I've been there and I've looked at it day in and day out.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And then finally,
so we're just pushing that on the side right now, and then, okay, next item?
So item number D, I just wanted to put this back up to tell the court that, in fact, on April 26th, we are going to have the future election briefing, or the elections briefing. It's going to come here. It looks like we're going to have that at 2 o'clock over in the Family Law Center. Last week, we laid out an agenda for you all, and you all tentatively approved that. We're working on that. We have still not received many, if any, questions back to our website, tcadmin.com. And so And so we're once again urging the public, if they do have a question that they would like for us to answer or to address, well, then please send that in. And you can also send it in to the administrator's office. And Judge, that is the extent of my briefing on that.
And we have 3 audience participations.
On that item, last week, and unless it was emailed out and I missed it, I had requested that we be emailed the specific email address and the directive for how people needed to submit
I thought that we sent that to you, but
Okay,
we
I
will
could
get
have
that out
missed
to you no later than tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
First, Mr. Brewster, come on back down. This is on the elections, future elections related.
I didn't start the agenda item, and I only need to comment if there's something I need to comment on.
Well, you heard everything we're going to say on it, but we got a couple of other agenda. Jennifer White.
Campbell here had put a.
Okay, so if you're going to address the court, you're going to need to come up so we can.
Because we can get a recording of it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know what the open-ended nature of that item was, and I put that audience participation form in just in case I needed to address it. And while I'm here, Ms. T.K. Campbell had put an audience participation form in to speak on another issue. I don't think it was agenda-related, and it looks like she got missed. Yeah, if something comes up that I need to talk about, I'd like to, but right now, I don't have anything to say on the subject.
Ms. Campbell, are you Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Okay, come forward, please.
Thank you so much. I am here to personally invite
Go ahead and pull that mic down just
each of the commissioners and you, Judge, to the Election Integrity Group of Tarrant County. We're having a town hall tonight. You should have gotten an email last week and phone calls yesterday, but we are having a meeting, a town hall tonight between 6:30 and 8:30 at the Sierra event place. That's on 3300 Bryant Irvin. And we're expecting over 200 people. We'd be very honored if you'd be there. We'll have reserved seats for you. And everybody here is also invited to that.
Will you have shields?
Certainly. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Jennifer White. Good morning, or afternoon, I guess.
Is it? Oh, right at it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. In October of 2021, I addressed this court regarding the failures of Tarrant County leadership to protect the fundamental rights of your constituents. I specifically addressed the issue of election integrity and notified you that the voting machines that would be used in the 2021 election were not properly certified. There have been 2 subsequent elections, and again, you have stood by as fraudulent elections took place in Tarrant County. Since the 2020 election, we, the people of this county, have called, emailed, protested, attended council meetings, participated in precinct committees, and in an effort to be heard and demand that you preserve and protect our right to free and fair elections, we begged you to listen to your constituents' concerns, yet you stood by while non-elected lobbyists and elected officials with obvious self-serving interest. Politicians really should wear NASCAR uniforms so we know who sponsors them. Continue to systematically destroy the very fabric of election integrity here in Tarrant County. Sadly, we have come to realize that you have no intention to be part of the solution, so determined you are to be part of the problem. The issue of election integrity is still on the minds of the majority of Tarrant County. So 2 very brave and patriotic citizens in this community have filed a writ of mandamus. This writ asks the court that the Tarrant County Sheriff, District Attorney, Tarrant County Judge, Commissioners Court, the Elections Administrator, the Democrat and Republican Party chairs be compelled to uphold their oaths and defend Article 6, Section 2C of the Texas Constitution, which states, "The privilege of free suffrage shall be protected by laws regulating elections and prohibiting, under adequate penalties, all undue influence from power, bribery, tumult, or improper practice." These documents were filed and you were served with these documents electronically on 4/8/2022. I'm here today to provide you with a copy of case number 067-332-597-22. You may have forgotten, but allow me to remind you that this court is accountable to the people of Tarrant County, and we won't give up until we are provided proper redress of our grievances and they are thoroughly investigated. The evidence provided in this legal document, 500-page legal document, is stunning. If you continue to ignore such obvious fraud, you will stand by as each one of your offices is taken away by we the people. And I have copies for each of you on the court.
You can give those to either Mr. Manius or to the DA over here. Again, we will be holding our election presentation on April the 26th. I will simply say that our machines are certified by the state of Texas. We do random audits as required by state law and by the Secretary of State, and we've been perfect in 2020, in 2021, in 2022 thus far. If that's the end of our briefing items, then I will recess our open meeting, proceed to close to discuss items exempted under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. I've been out of town and they had to have a signature.
Same here.
But I tell them they better never stamp anything without me knowing about it. Blink at us if you're back there. Having returned from our closed session, there being no business to conduct at this time, we stand adjourned.